In this week's episode of What If Obama Did That, we begin with Half Day Friday. The President of the United States punched out at the White House today at 2:24 p.m. when he boarded the helicopter that would take him to Air Force One for his first weekend vacation in Florida as president. No one at Fox News has commented on how lazy the president is, as they did virtually every time President Obama touched a golf club or a basketball. And no one at Fox News is complaining about the cost of round-tripping Air Force One to Florida for non-governmental purpose. And one of the most nagging critics of President Obama's use of personal time has been completely silenced by the Trump White House. This is typical of tweets Donald Trump sent every time President Obama used Air Force One for vacations. President Barack Obama's vacationing is costing taxpayers millions of dollars. Unbelievable. Good thing that guy's not around anymore to criticize President Trump's flying down to Florida for the weekend. And in other What If Obama Did That news, it has been revealed that not only did the White House issue a statement on Holocaust Remembrance Day that did not mention Jews being exterminated by Hitler, but according to Politico, the State Department wrote a statement that day that did specifically commemorate Jewish victims, and that statement was blocked by the Trump White House. What if Obama did that? What if President Obama refused to mention what happened to Jewish people in the Holocaust and would not allow the State Department to mention what happened to the Jewish victims of the Holocaust? Would impeachment hearings already be underway? A few Jewish organizations expressed their disappointment and corrected the historical record, but they refrained from any condemnation of the president. What if Obama did that? How many organizations would have condemned him personally? What would the Prime Minister of Israel have said? Do you really think Benjamin Netanyahu would have remained silent about this, as he did for the Trump administration? Or do you think Benjamin Netanyahu would have said that it revealed something sinister about the Obama administration's attitude toward Israel and the Jewish people? The American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, pretends to be nonpartisan, but they swooned for candidate Donald Trump when he appeared at their national conference last year. AIPAC did not condemn the president for neglecting, and now it turns out refusing, to mention Jewish suffering in the Holocaust. But today, AIPAC did release this statement praising the president's new sanctions against Iran. AIPAC applauds the Trump administration's announcement today sanctioning an additional 13 individuals and 12 entities for their support of Iran's malign activities. The Trump administration claims that the new sanctions target 25 individuals and entities associated with Iran's ballistic missile program. And at the end of the leakiest first 2 weeks of a presidency, some pharmaceutical company CEOs revealed today that in their private meeting with the president, he seemed to reverse his campaign pledges about controlling drug prices.
If we negotiated the price of drugs, we would save $300 billion a year, okay? No, think of that. And we don't do it. You know why? Because the senators and the congressmen and all these people get campaign contributions from the pharmaceutical companies. With me, I don't get anything. We're going out to bid, folks, believe me.
The Washington Post reports today that the CEOs attending that private meeting with the president this week say that the president did not say a word about trying to control drug prices. Joining us now, Frank Bruni, op-ed columnist at the New York Times, Marie Cox, senior political correspondent for MTV News, and Eugene Robinson, Pulitzer Prize-winning opinion writer for the Washington Post and an MSNBC political analyst. And Anna, where to begin? And feel free at the end of these first 2 weeks to begin anywhere you want, but I'm going to offer up that last point about the pharmaceutical companies saying, we got in the room with him and he didn't say a word about our prices. And there he was telling his supporters every day on the campaign trail that he was going to get in there and negotiate those prices with drug companies and control those prices in effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to feel like, there's that saying, I think it's Maya Angelou, that, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. And we've seen that with Trump, right? Like a lot of what's happened, some of the stuff that we were told not to take literally, just seriously, I can't remember what the divide was, he's gone ahead and done. But it seems like basically if anything he wanted to do that sounded remotely appealing, to people on the other side of the political spectrum, it seems like that's the stuff he's not going to do. Anything that's horrifying, he will do. And I did come up with some stuff that you didn't mention. I don't think you mentioned the botched raid in Yemen, which was. And that's, you know what, let's just say that tragedies happen and that we don't really know exactly what happened there. What's astounding about that raid is the decision to do it was made over dinner with political consultants in the room. Can you imagine, to go back to your question about what if Obama had done it, if Obama had made a decision about a military raid with Axelrod and Valerie Jarrett weighing in? I don't think, you know, I believe we would probably have some hearings on that. Yeah,
and Gene Robinson, to continue the what if Obama did that, tonight apparently we're learning that the video released that was supposed to be this raid was actually video from another raid 10 years before. And I mean, we could easily do the hour with what if Obama did that.
Yeah, what if Obama did any of this stuff, Lawrence? You know, look, I think the contrast between the way President Obama and other presidents were viewed and the way this president is viewed is going to emerge. It's going to dawn on people and sink in, I think, with time. But in terms of the first 2 weeks, you kind of have to pick greatest hits, right? I mean, there's obviously or ungreatest hits. There's obviously the Muslim travel ban and refugee ban, which was just an amazing affront to our values, I thought. There was the prayer for Arnold Schwarzenegger's ratings at the National Prayer Breakfast. Remember that? And then, of course, there was the rupturing of our relationship with Australia, which really it took some creativity, I think. That's a hard thing to pull off.
And Frank, this is the White House in which Frederick Douglass is still alive.
I was going to say I loved Gene's litany just there, but one of my favorite moments, favorite being used in a different way, of the week was his meeting with a very small group of chosen black leaders in the White House for Black History Month. He turned Black History Month into Trump Appreciation Day. And he sat there, and rather than doing what you would expect and paying tribute to the struggles and hardships of black Americans through time, he talked about his own struggles, his own hardships, what he deals with in terms of quote-unquote fake news, biased journalism. I mean, a mention of Martin Luther King Jr. immediately became a story about how Trump had been victimized by erroneous and quickly corrected news reports that a King bust had been removed from the Oval Office. And what I continue to be absolutely mesmerized and appalled by is that the degree of self-congratulation, the magnitude of self-congratulation that existed on the campaign trail has migrated totally into the Trump administration. And we're looking at and listening to a president every day who does nothing so energetically as praise himself. And it changes one's entire view of the presidency, and I think it really undercuts the moral authority of the office.
Gene, you're grown.
If I can jump,
Honor, I think we have to go to Gene Robinson's groan. When Frank talked about the president meeting with these so-called leaders. Go ahead, Gene.
That was, what could you say about it, Lawrence?
You can just groan. If you want to leave it on the groan, Gene, that's okay.
Right. Frank said it eloquently. It was amazing. I was on the air the other night. I did invite President Trump. I'd be happy to take him over to Anacostia here in Washington and to walk through Frederick Douglass's house, which is with part of the national park system now, and maybe it could be a learning moment. Maybe
he even talked to them about what an unexpectedly high percentage of the black vote he'd gotten once black voters listened to him. He got 8% of the black vote. He continues to live in this alternate fact world where we all sit here today mourning the Bowling Green massacre.
Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, this is sort of bringing some of these things together, which is this alternate fact world and the constant assuaging of his ego, the harping on his so-called accomplishments of ratings, of attendance, of his voting, of people who turned out or didn't turn out to vote for him. Remember, he's also claimed credit for black people not turning out, that he considers that a sign of his success.
So they both voted for him in record numbers and stayed home in record numbers all because of him.
Right, exactly. So this all comes comes together in a way to make the authoritarianism possible is another step towards that, because it insulates him from the ramifications of his actions. You know, when he lives in this bubble where he is, you know, blessed and special and can do no wrong, he doesn't hear what we have to say, what we the people have to say. He doesn't pay attention. He thinks it's all fake news, right?
But it sounds,
and that just
sounds
upsets a very fundamental tenet of democracy.
Anna, it sounds as if he doesn't hear what anyone has to say because his staff has been busy talking to him through the press. There's been a torrent of leaks, and I think unprecedented in a new administration. All these stories sourced to senior administration officials just kind of trashing the way this this White House is operating and the way this president is operating.
The leaks are really fascinating because we're just 2 weeks in, and that is a measure of the internal dissent.
And the first 2 weeks are normally the most leak-free leaks of a president's life.
Right, but this is a completely disorganized, chaotic operation, and I think it's only going to become more so, and it's going to really undercut everything they try to do. But that the people closest to Trump have that much doubt about him and that much of an interest in undercutting him by leaking to the media, that's a very, very scary sign.
So the leaks are an astonishing thing to see in the first couple of weeks, and also the job approval numbers are just astonishing. There's a new CNN poll tonight saying 64% disapprove on job approval, 32% approve. The travel ban, 67% disapprove, 33% approve. The border wall, 79% disapprove, 20% approve. This is among millennials ages 18 to 34. That's the most extreme disapproval he's getting, and we see that disapproval in the streets. But the other overall numbers are also net negative all the way through these polls. And the one thing we know about presidential polls is this is the high point. Historically, the first 2 weeks, that's the high point in your presidential polling for the rest of your life as a president. It only goes down from here.
And, you know, and we shouldn't, you know, presidents shouldn't govern completely according to polls, right? Like, sometimes the right thing to do is not the popular thing to do. I think we can all accept that. But, you know, it's a good barometer for kind of like just a general sense of where you're headed. And the unfortunate thing here is that Trump is just not going to believe this stuff. I mean, he's already dismissed, he's obsessed with watching cable news, but he dismisses cable news. It's actually a really sick relationship, I think, in some ways, like he has with the media. It's like picking at a scab for him or something. I mean, I wish I could come up with a less gross metaphor, but it's a pretty gross relationship. I think, you know, it concerns me because, again, I think of all of this, including the leaks, including his obsession with fake news, as being a pathway to disruption of democracy. Because I would say these leaks aren't about undercutting Trump necessarily, in the sense that they're about people inside the White House who want to save democracy, who want to protect what we have as a country. I think they're just like out to get each other. You know, like this is just a sort of you know, Lord of the Flies situation, which isn't going to help anyone. It's not. It's neither going to help Trump do what he wants to do, and it's not going to help us as a country kind of prevent Trump from doing what he wants to do in a democratic sense.
And Frank, Politico is reporting tonight that in a speech this week in Arizona, Bill O'Reilly is leaking some of his personal communication with Donald Trump, including him telling Donald Trump that he believes that they're going to try to impeach him. And we also learned in that speech that Bill O'Reilly used to call him Mr. Potato Head and now has to call him Mr. President. And it sounds like O'Reilly resents that switch.
I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, they're two men who...
if I can leave you speechless, my job is done. All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Frank Bruni, Marie Cox, Eugene Robinson, thank you all for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.